President Obama's move on immigration has some on Capitol Hill now fearing that any chance for bipartisanship on passing a reform bill is essentially dead. Joining us now to discuss it is Weston Wamp, former Republican congressional candidate, and Jessica Tarlov joins us, senior political strategist at Schoen Consulting. Good to see you both.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Has Weston, the president, chosen confrontation over cooperation?
Well, he's in an interesting position because there's culpability on both sides, and I'll own that as a Republican. Speaker Boehner went to sleep last night knowing that if he had allowed the House to vote a year ago, we wouldn't be here today. President Obama knew that he went to bed with less credibility among most of the country than he's ever had because he, on so many occasions, 20-plus occasions since he was a candidate, said specifically he can't do this. He can't do what he went ahead and did yesterday. So it's a difficult position. I think, unfortunately, he burned a bridge here before the new Senate's even sworn in.
Yeah, constitutionality or legality aside, has the president essentially from the outset now squandered goodwill with a Republican Congress and thus sort of diminished chances of getting stuff done?
I don't think he really had any goodwill with a Republican Congress anyway. I think
well,
it was
a lot of these people he doesn't even know yet.
Well, yeah, there are some he doesn't know, but we all know that it's the leadership that counts. And Mitch McConnell has known him a long time. Boehner's known him a long time. And they know what they think about him and about his policies. And I'm glad that we do agree about this, more or less, about what the president did last night. And that, yes, maybe it wasn't the right thing to do insofar as if you're looking at the polls. And the American people have said that I think it's 62% in the most recent Rasmussen poll that they don't want him to do this without congressional approval. But when you look at it, it's a very brave move. He warned it was coming, and he dared Congress. He said, okay, get me a bill and I'll sign it. So why can't they just go and get him a bill?
You know, there's something else that you say, you know, it's good timing. There's something else that sort of stinks, at least to Republicans, about this, and that is he's doing it now. I mean, he had a Democratic-controlled Congress in 2009, 2010, did nothing about the subject, even though it was important back then. Waited until after his re-election and after the midterm elections. Now, all of a sudden, this is so important. Does that strike you as a bit phony?
He even referred to it as sort of a moral imperative, even though it's clearly driven by political timing. But that doesn't give an excuse to the reality that this should come from the legislative branch, and so there's still, I think, now a requirement. He put the ball back in his court, back in Speaker Boehner's court. One thing we have to remember is the president has very little to lose in his final 2 years, and I think you saw a little bit of that attitude. You also saw a little bit of laziness. He has really no desire to go back to Capitol Hill and work across the aisle with a Congress that's been extremely difficult for 4 or 6 years.
But why is that laziness? If they've been difficult, if he has extended certainly the immigration olive branch on a number of occasions and been totally rebuffed, how is that not practicality?
Well, I think it's laziness, just like he said. There are a whole lot of senators, in fact, really reputable Americans who are going to be sworn in January. And all the president really had to do to build a lot of credibility and put a lot of pressure on House Republicans was say, here's a 6-month window. I'm going to let the new guys be sworn in. I'm going to see if Speaker Boehner can bring his conference to a place of responsibility. Because, frankly, I don't think Speaker Boehner would have ever approached the subject, which would have given 6 months from now the president even more reason and justification to do this.
Well, I wonder if he is attempting, the president, to sort of goad Republicans into overreacting. Our own Brit Hume made this point the other day. He said, look, if the president really wants to force a government shutdown, the people that are going to get the blame over this, defunding immigration and so forth, you tie it to a spending bill, are going to be your party, Republicans.
Right. Well, the worst case scenario here is that it makes everything worse. It creates an even wider partisan divide. And one of the most interesting factors, because like I said earlier, both have culpability, both sides are in a sense to blame, but you've actually got real people who have been deep in the trenches of immigration reform who seem perturbed by the president's style here. I mean, when the president of the California Farm Bureau, who's been working on this issue for years, says, I think he may have set us back. I just wish this wouldn't have been the way that he would have approached the subject. It makes you wonder if there's any positive end game. I think
well, there's certainly a positive end game. There are up to 5 million people who are going to get to stay here, who are going to get to be here with their families. These are people who have been working. They're not criminals.
Well,
They're
what
not
about the
threats.
message it sends to everybody else in the world? If you want to come here to America and stay, come here illegally.
I don't think it says. I mean,
message?
he was clear about that last night. This is not an invitation.
Well,
and
like
I'm not saying that
anybody's
people
now going to pay attention to him on that subject.
I don't. I mean, listen. I think that we should have two bills. One should be about securing the border, and the other should be about a pathway to citizenship. Jessica
Tarlov, Western Wamp, good to see you both. Thanks for being with us. And for the latest on this developing story, check out the politics page on foxnews.com. I'm Greg Jarrett. Thanks for watching.